Hello and welcome again. Last bit of makeup. No, actually, I've decided to take on the startup mentality and convince myself that I am, in fact, a unicorn. Um, yeah, I thought the best way to get this built in a week is to tell you all that you can all come and work for me for no salary. I will give you a small percentage in the business, and when it makes money, we'll start paying you. Because we've all seen those. We've all had those situations because we all believe we're unicorns when we're a startup. But what I'm going to do is actually do it myself. So let's go. So I worked on the UI a little bit last night. I'm not going to lie. I made it a little bit prettier because it was annoying me. I added the little logo that I made. It's a terrible logo, but it will do. So let's get started. What we're doing today, let's go have a look at Notion, shall we? Go to my Notion, content, event streaming. So where did we get to? We started modeling some data. That was great. We've pretty much done most of the data modeling. The only thing we need to do is insights, but we're going to come back to that. We've got some brand colors which we can implement later. Import the logo. We've got some things that we want to look at installing. I'd say we don't need Notion for the next part, to be honest. What we need is to be writing code. So where did we get to? We've got projects. We can see projects. We can't click through. I created this, so we can say create a new one, test. At the minute, it does nothing. So we need to kind of implement that a little bit. So why don't we start with that? I'm going to put some music on quietly in the background, and we will kick this off. I'm using this one called Into Space, which is part of the StreamYard audio stuff. I'm hoping it is copyright free. It says it isn't, so we'll see about that one. Let's move the camera so you can appreciate the unicornness that is this startup. Let's have a quick sip of coffee, because what we want to do now is look at, this form. A project, it's only got the one field, so, why create a whole new page for it? So come over to our Resource.js components app, bloody projects. So project status, project name, button, create, text input, format is name, open, create new project. I'm going to switch this part here to say toggle. So let's create a const toggle, which is function. What this function would do is form open equals false. That's going to complain, so I need to do form open.value. But what we're also going to do is form.name equals null. So it's kind of like resetting the state a little bit. Let's see what happens. Create new project. Okay, that's not working. Have to do it in line. It seems to be a bug. Right, great project. Test. Oh, it clears it. That's what I wanted it to do. So thank you anybody who is just tuning in. Start up from scratch in a week. I say a week, it's more like 10 hours because I'm only doing 2 hours a day, but we'll see. So here are our projects. These are team aware. So if I create a new team, well, that's not going to work because I haven't fixed the layout, but yeah, we'll get round to that. We'll get round to it. Profile keeps breaking. Things keep breaking. We need hrefs. A href. Okay, so let's at this point, what we've got is we can go to a project, we can go view a project, and what we will see at that point, once we are inside a project, once we click on that and we go into the project, we will then be able to see the channels and the events. So let's look at the project show and project create and routes quickly. So where projects, that's a creating, we'll come back to that. What we'll also do is we'll get request. We're going to use ULID because I don't do root model binding myself. I find it gets in my way. We're going to make a controller, project store controller, but we're going to call this one show. So, show controller, and simplify that one. So now in our index here, what we can actually do is link for projects, blah, blah, blah. Here's a key. Class. And we are going to bind href to a root called projects show, passing to the project ID. Now when I hover, click, that's great. But that is what I expected to happen at this point. So now if we come over to projects, come to the show controller, this should expect a string as a ULID, a sting. I didn't know Sting was joining us today. And this is going to return a inertia response. So let's go to our public function constructor. Let's get rid of that first. That. Add some script types, make that final. We're gonna have read-only function here for the factory. Can't type today. Response factory as response. This is going to return this response render, where the component is projects show. What this needs is some props. Project in question needs to be passed through, but we also need to be able to we need to query and fetch and build and all that stuff. So queries projects, fetch projects for team. So this one is fetch project by ID. Now this is where something like the maybe the repository pattern could be handy, but I'm not going to use it still. Add null into that one. So this one will return project, query, find or fail. ID is the URL ID passed in. And we're going to include potential relationships. So we can add an array for include here, which starts as initially empty. That when I fetch the project by ID, fetch project by ID as the query. Hey, it's not actually a headset, it's my daughter's headband. It's I'm being a unicorn. So new project resource. Every startup wants to be a unicorn. I'm just doing it my way. I'm starting out as a unicorn. So the URL ID is a URL ID. What we want to include when we show a project. We want to also include channels and events. That's about it, really. I mean, I can't think of anything else I'd want to show at this point. If I come back to here, click, come over to our network, try to view it, file not found, that is what we wanted. So if we come over to here, we can create a new one, show.view. Let's start with our script setup. I'm assuming most people who start startups are maybe a little bit more organized around getting started than I have been. I'm probably going to make this a lot easier, right? So click, I'm in, that's great. This is now showing. We'll worry about that in a moment. What we now want to do is think about creating. So requests, web store request. This should be true by default. But what I want to do is just go have a look. Okay. Let's just keep going. Let's keep going. There's some strict types. Make this a final class. Go away, ID error. Probably need to update you. The rules. Okay, so the rules for this is that project, all it needs is a name. So this is required. It should always be a string, minimum of 2 characters with a maximum of 255 because we have a varchar. And that's it. That's all we need at this point. So we can come over to that store controller, make sure that is hooked up. Store request, let's delete that. Come over to here, don't need that, don't need that. It is final. Strict types. And what this is going to do is it's going to return a redirect response. So return new redirect response. The URL that we're going to go to, we're going to use action, and we're going to go back to the index controller. And that is all we need to do for that. Let's simplify that one. Use function action. Let's go make sure it's the right one. Helpers Laravel. Yep, that's the right one. Perfect. So now all we have to worry about is actually creating this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see, because this is probably an important part for kind of building. Right. Okay. So how do we want to do this? That's the main question. How should we be doing this? Do we want to be running this part synchronously or asynchronously? Realistically, we kind of don't care at this point. It's not going to be a busy application, so we can push this to the background. So what I'm going to do is use part of my own personal package that I've created called Launchpad, and I'm going to pull in private read-only dispatchable bus, dispatchable command bus. What we want to do is make a new job. So make a job. This is for the web, for projects, and we want this to be create new project. Got some test into that. Perfect. So this bus dispatch the job is a new create new project. This will take in the name, which is request name to Spring. We also need the current team. So the team, what we need to do is also then pull in the private read-only auth factory view process complex auth. We're going to call that auth. Then we can say this auth guard user current team ID, and then this will probably have to be wrapped in a string val. So if I now come over to here, we can start to clean this up. Make manually public read-only string name, public read-only string team. That's all we need. Then we want to be able to execute the job. Hi Steve, how do you normally price or quote your clients? Oh, that really depends actually. Start with, do you need the money? If you do, make sure you price so that you're actually getting a fair deal out of it. If you don't need the money and you're doing it for experience or because you just fancy doing it, price how you like. I do actually have a spreadsheet for this, which helps me decide all of this sort of stuff. Right, what I need is this handle method. I need to pull in Portal for the database. So I can say database transaction callback is going to be project query create attributes for name, this name, the team ID is this team. Make sure I'm not missing anything out. Status is going to have a default value, so that's fine. We can probably keep that as is. I'm not going to do any sort of error catching for that right now. We'll worry about that later. Yes, it is definitely Rainbow Unicorn Day. So we're dispatching this. Reduces cognitive load, but as soon as we do that, yeah, shouldn't be a problem. Cool, excellent. This has potential to be nullable. String, dispatch, bloody blah, off we go. Let's go test it manually, because that's how we test things when we're working here. Right, just create, bang, test appeared, just what we wanted. Unicorn. Here, it's working. It's appearing over here. So let's go F and U. Wait. I should create some FU over there. Fantastic. We are getting there. Right, let me have some coffee and we'll think about what's next. So the important thing at this point is that we know our users can log in, they can register, they get a team, they can manage their team by default through Jetstream. That is no problem for us. That's great. It means that we don't have to worry about that. So it means we can now focus on the kind of the business part of it. So we start with a project which belongs to a team. Great. Let's create it. We've got projects. Each project that we have is going to have channels. So when we go into it, we can see a stream, filter by channel, all that good stuff. So we're making good progress is what I'm trying to say here. The next thing I want to do is quite possibly actually test. Real testing, not this kind of clickety-click testing, because that's not testing. So command test, we got pest set up. It's not set up the Steve way, but it is set up. Delete that, and we can delete that. So we've got refresh databases going on, that's fine. Let's come over to our PHP config down here. This part, we want to make sure that we're testing the SQLite memory because, unit test and care. We've got all of these that come as default in Jetstream. So what we're going to do before we do any real testing is we're just going to run our test suite and see where we are. So let's say composer test. Drink my coffee while it runs. Still got 3 failures, that's fine. This one expected you to fail. Great. Run it again. This one, show controller test. Let's delete that because we expected you to fail. And then feature example test. I don't really want you in the test suite. So if I now run it again, we're good. Now, but I've noticed a slight issue on that there. So what I'm going to do quickly is open up Warp. And we're just going to look at the appearance and we are going to pin to the bottom. Great. Rename this Artisan. Now we're getting the view that we wanted. Fantastic. Right, so for this bit, it's going to be quite busy. What I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off my camera, allow us to focus on the code, and we're going to look at how we're going to actually test this. I am going to put my fan on because it's getting hot in my office. If it is too loud, let me know and I will turn it off and just sweat it out. I am going to stay unicorned, so bear with me. Right, so testing. What do we want to test first? That is the important question. So index controller. So it will redirect if not authenticated. Great. I created a couple of to-do tests last night while I was waiting for my dinner. Why not? Music's getting annoying. Let me turn that off. It's not a big deal. Why not a pipeline if you have more steps? I am going to look into that. This is kind of, it's an MVP. The steps are going to get more complicated, so I will refactor later on. But the idea of a kind of an MVP is to get a basic concept. It's not to build something perfect that's going to stay like that forever. You want to get there quick. You want to get there well, and then you can come back and revisit it. Any other questions? I followed the stream yesterday. I still have some trouble understanding the goal of the app. Could you give it some more practical use example. Yes, of course I can. Not problematic. No need to apologize for disturbing me. That is the purpose of this. So, the goal of this application is, it's like Mixpanel, I guess. So if I just open up Arc quickly and go to like Mixpanel. So Mixpanel is great. It's product analytics, all insights. The purpose of it is to capture events that are happening within your application. But it's a little bit kind of front-endy, styly focus, maybe. So I'm building one that's more of a kind of back-endy focus, maybe. But yeah, it's similar to Mixpanel. That's what I'm going to explain it as. I hope that helped. So it will redirect if not authenticated. So I want to get URI action index controller. I want to go to the index controller. I'm not going to add it as a root because roots change. Controllers change less often. And at this point, because I'm not authenticated, I want to assert that the status code that I get. Actually, no, I don't. I should be redirected. Yeah. So assert redirect. I can pass a URL into there, and I'm just going to put something like login, because I don't actually control that one. Assert redirect, it's URI, not URL. So this one hopefully will work. So, right, okay, so Composer test again. So far, so good. What I'm going to do, these ones that I'm writing now, I am going to write some, I'm going to group them. So this is, for example, I'm going to group this one under X. So now if I Composer test group projects, that passes through. That's not, I'm going to have to use the actual command line. So maybe I'll go a test because it makes no difference really. And then we're going to say we're going to go to group projects. We have one test that passed. Fantastic. So next step, it will load the paging component correctly. Great. Yeah, there does seem to be a delay. I do apologize. Unfortunately, that's a YouTube thing. That's something that I control. We could look at what we can do in the future. So we want to say acting as. We want to make sure that we have a user when we're making this request. User, factory, create. We want a user for this request, and that is the only reason we need them. We are going to do a get request. To the index controller. We are going to assert that the status code that we get is A200. Do I have the package installed? Yes, I do. Fantastic. I planned for this. So, what's the difference between using Composer Pest and Default Pest? So, this is something that I probably don't explain enough. What I have in my Composer file is I have test. This just shortcuts to PHP Artisan test. Just like, so I can say Composer test, or if I run Composer, you should see test and stan listed. So test, run the test script as defined in composer.json. Stan, run the stan script. What I can do, I can take this a step further. Script descriptions. So if I say test, run the Laravel test suite like a boss. Now, if I run Composer again, test, run the Laravel test suite like a boss. So it's just a way to kind of add additional scripts. And it just makes it easier, especially for like these ones where it's like vendor bin, analyze, PHP stand, analyze. I might have to set a memory limit. I might have to do this. Yeah. I want to ask why you add test and pint in the Composer if there's a benefit. It's so much easier. You know, I could go to my command line and say, okay, /vendor/bin/pint, run Laravel pint. That's great. Or I could say just write quickly Composer pint. Or, you know, I could add an alias. I don't know what CO does in my aliases, so I better not run that one. But I could add an alias, and so I could just say like C pint. If I add C as an alias for Composer, it means that I'm less keys pressed and stuff. My wife brought me a coffee, and I've not even finished my last one.
It's a cappuccino.
A cappuccino. Oh, look at that. Service with a smile. There you go.
Your horny horse.
Do you like my horn?
I'm not going to comment on a live stream about your horn.
Okay, so let's get back to this test. So we're acting as a user. We're going to get from this URL, we're performing a GET request to this controller. At this point, we are asserting that the status is okay. So I'm going to grab this group and we're just going to add it on there. And we're going to leave it at that for a second. So if I a test group projects, one is failing. Why is one failing? App queries, handle argument one team must be of type string, null given. Okay, so this is where we need to say with personal team. Run it again. Failed. Team must be of string, type string. It shouldn't be failing. Failing. Index controller. Let's go have a look. Bang. This auth guard user current team ID. So let's go look at user. Email verified. Has teams. This current team. This current team ID. So what we might have to do, grab this and pull it out just so we can have a look at it. So our user is there. Swap that for the user. Just do a quick time dump on the user itself. Let's see what is going on. Terminal. Okay, so we're getting some errors. Syntax error somewhere. Controller test 21. Over here. That is causing an issue. So we have got a user. Current team ID is currently null. Okay, so for some reason, with current team isn't working on the user factory. So let's come over to the user factory. User factory, here's our user. Current team ID by default is null. Oh, wait, with personal team, did I do that? It was spelled correctly too. With a callable, name, user, personal team, true. This has a team where the state when is callable. I'm going to delete that part. Owned teams. I don't believe it should be owned teams. I'm not 100% sure. Let's go double check that one. Is current team, switch team, all teams. this owned teams. Owned teams. It isn't this owned teams. Okay, so let's run that again and see what's happening. Current team ID is null. Okay, so what is going on with that? That isn't actually used. With personal team, this attributes owned teams. Call back. What is going on with this? Let's go have a look down here. Create team test. This acting as user with personal team. Create teams. Should have two. Registration test. User can register. Registration. Yeah, there's no actual tests for this. Authentication, login, user factory, login, logging in. There's no real tests for that functionality in Jetstream that I can see. So I don't know how reliable that factory is. So we are going to have to do it this way. So user factory create, and we are going to say team is team factory create. This is for the user update. This just feels like a long way around, right? Current team ID is team get key. At this point, we should have everything. Unfailed. Team user has teams. So we want to see the Jetstream team. Personal team has many projects. I swear this is meant to have. Let me come over to the database and set this up. Yes, Laravel Jutsu is Nord Coders. He redid his branding. Don't even know where I am right now. GitHub, just Steve King, Events Snap, database, SQLite to go. Yeah, he changed his branding. Don't know why, but he did, and it's kind of cool. He's got some Laravel Ninja skills. That's all that matters, right? Right, teams. This does have a user ID. It doesn't have a relationship. So project belongs to a project. What we need to add that relationship realistically. So public function user belongs to return this belongs to related is a user class, and the foreign key that it uses is a user ID. So now if we run that again, that should not fail. That should have current team ID is still set to null, darn it. Okay, so I'm assuming that could be a fillable issue. So let's come over to our user, fillable, let's test it. Current team ID is still null. Okay, so what could possibly be causing this? Current team ID is team get DD user team. So here's a team. User ID is that. Here's my user. But ID is the same, but current team ID is none. What's going on? What's causing these issues? Yeah, no, me and Lord Coders, me and Lavo Jutsu we're always talking about stuff, aren't we, buddy? We talk to each other a lot, actually. First check the get. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that get key. That should be getting the key, right? So let's do. It's not very often that I have to debug. it's strange. That is getting what I expect it to. So at the same time, let's do the user get key. They are different, which is good. Something is going on that's stopping me setting the current team ID on the user. Hidden. Current team ID. And in this, it's got as teams, it's current team, switch teams, force fill. Okay, it's doing force fill on this. Perhaps there's a reason for that. Force fill, save. Let's just do a user refresh quick. This is a strange thing. There we go, run that. Unexpected blah. I'm always doing something wrong, aren't I? There's always something going with typos galore. One failed. No such column. Update users set. Wait a minute. Can it be that simple? Let me update that. Oh my god. Was it that? Was it? Oh my god, it was that. Okay, so let's run it again and see what happens. Oh god, maybe I do need this coffee more than I thought I did. Well, at this rate, we aren't going to be launching a startup at the end of the week, are we? So what are we doing here? Yep. That's all good. I'm going to just... No, I'm not going. We'll load the page and component. Okay, cool. So we've got that through correctly. Because we are using inertia, we do need to do some basic inertia tests here. This is page... Let's simplify that. And what we can test at this point, all we care about really is that the component is the correct one. So projects index. Kind of like the only thing we care about at this point. Let's load in the pages, load the component. That's all I care about. Let's move on. Right, let's close all of that. What's next? Store controller. Okay, we'll redirect if not authenticated. We'll return validation errors, not areas, and it will create a new project. So let's swap this over to an it. Function void. And we're going to do a get request URI of action. Nope. We're going to do a post request to the store controller. No matter what data we give it, because we are going to assert redirect URI should be /login. We're going to group this under projects again. Repassed, it will redirect if not authenticated. Perfect. It will return validation errors. So all it needs is one string. So I am going to come to here, grab this, come down to pest, and create my own little helper function. So function create user. This should return a user model. Return user. All care about. That's all we need. It is a super simple helper acting as create user post to here. But before we finish that, we will come to index, swap this for create user. Allows us to clean that up, drop that. Perfect. That is good. That is good. Insert a redirect again. This should redirect to the index controller because it's called RAM. And we want to assert session has errors. Keys. Session has errors. The keys that we want is name. That's it. It will be pass. Let's group this under projects. Run that again. One failed. So what's causing the issue? Name field is required following the last request. Okay. Is this a precognition thing? Asserting that two strings are equal. Okay, it's failing on this redirect from the looks of it. There we go. Not a problem. That is great. And then the final one is that we want to make sure that it will indeed create a new project. I always make typos. It's why we created typo scripts, right? So acting as user, I'm going to post requests to the store controller. Data that we're going to pass, the name is just going to be test. Insert redirect At this point, that's what we care about, really. So what we will do is, however, is we will fake the bus. The only thing that's important at this point, really, is just certain that the bus dispatched the job. Create new project. That's our main concern right now. Is it will create a new project, send the data, it passes validation, and the job is dispatched. That is, how we've designed it. It works. So next we can come over to jobs, web projects, and we can say that it will create a new project. That's simple. Void. I'm going to group this under projects as well. So at this point, we can just expect that the project query count to equal 0. At this point, we shouldn't have any projects. What we will do is say, okay, once we've actually ran everything, we should have one. So we're going to dispatch create new project where the name is test and the team. We actually need to get a user now. So if we say user equals create user, and then we can just do something like user current team. That, in theory, should work. And it does. It will create a new project. Fantastico. Good coffee. Right. So that is our basic testing. What I want to do at this point really is I want to make sure that the end result is going to be fine. Can I, from a UI perspective, not hugely vital. And second day in, my end goal is to have an API that people can integrate with. So I need to think about that API. So let's come down to our Roots and our API itself. Roots API. We're going to be able to create API tokens. It's that simple. What they will do. So what we want is we got one main endpoint really is we're going to have like an event track endpoint, and eventually we're going to have, let's come over to where did our Notion close? Here it is. Insights and events. Events have these properties. We want to be able to capture events and insights. As the platform scales, we're going to move that out to ingress nodes and edge locations for quicker response times. So the whole point of kind of these events that are being tracked is we just want to take that payload and say thank you. Thank you, dispatch. Thank you, dispatch. We're just going to grab and pass on. Because as we scale, the longer we take to process that request, the less we can handle in one go. So I'm going to have, from a naming convention, this is all about ingress. So we can say root prefix ingress. We're going to start the name using ingress, and we are going to group everything under a new file, because that's kind of how I do things. I separate it out in my mind that way. So roots API. The first one is going to be tracking events. So events PHP. So ingress events. The only thing we need is one post endpoint. I mean, in reality, I could add it to this file, but that's not how I structure my routes typically. So I could say routing. Where's my facade? There we go. I want a post request. Like that. Post request, name, store. That's all we need. So now we can come over and we can say a make controller. We don't want web. What we need is API. We are going to v1 it. Ingress event store controller. This will be invocable and we will generate a test. So this one, event store controller, like that one. Over down here, I do want to do versioning in case things change. So I can prefix v1 as v1 group static function. Drop that in there. Now if we a route list, come up to our API, we've got API v1 ingress events. v1 ingress events store. Perfect. Next, we want a request. So a make request. This will be API v1 ingress event request. So come to here, click through. We can change this to an event request. This is going to return a simple kind of responsible object of some description. We don't need that. Get rid of that controller, get rid of that, get rid of that. Add some strict types. What else do we want to do? We want to come through to here. We want to make sure that this is indeed working. This is a final class. Want to declare some strict types on that one. Add some middleware quickly. Auth sanctum. At this point, it should be authenticated. The validation that we've got going on is we open up event name. Definitely need a name. Required string min2 max 255. This is very freeform. This field with our event over here. Icon. What we are going to do is we're going to say that this one is nullable. If we do have it, it should be a string. Min2 max 255. We'll come back to worrying about how we're going to build out these icons. The description. Description should be required, and it should be a string. That is a text field. Do we want to notify when an event is dispatched? Realistically, we kind of do. We want to say, wow, what is going on with my typing? This is required, and it should be a Boolean. Tags. Tags comes through as an array. This is required, and it should be an array. So everything inside tags should be a string. Meta, for now, what we're going to do with meta is just say that it is required, and it should be an array. We haven't fully planned out that part. So when we come over to here, at this point, we should have some sort of payload we can work with. So if I open up Insomnia quickly, don't even know what I was building there. Oh, that was something else. That's from a different stream. Okay, so let's come over to here. Let's make sure we've got our server going on. Aserve. Grab that. I'll create a new request collection. I'm just going to call it my collection. New request, doing a post request to here. API v1 ingress events and connect to server. Site still can't be reached. Okay. Let's close that off. Terminate. There we go. Now things should be up and running. Okay, so we're getting a 200 OK, but because of how we're sending the request, it's redirecting to there. That is fine. So what I'd like to do by the end of this episode is handle incoming requests. Oh, coffee time. Right, so our headers, what we need is we will accept application JSON unauthenticated. Fantastic. So next we need to look at actually creating a token. So that means we're actually going to have to fix part of the app. So where we come down to, let's come to our config quickly. Config Jetstream. Let's make sure we've got the API enabled. That is done. Close all of those. I don't need anything in that right now. Resources, JS, pages, API, index. Right, okay, so we need to go to application. Get rid of that. That should be good. Go to the import. We don't need that anymore. And let's go have a look at our UI and let's see if we can manage our API tokens. We can. First, and this is just going to be all those. Create. I can grab that. Come over to here. Add a new one of authorization bearer. Token. Name field is required. Okay, so the content type that we want to send over is again application JSON. So don't need that one. So the body, we want to send over some JSON content, And our payload is going to look at something a little bit like this. Name, test, event, the description, some information about what happened, potential tags at this point. We just want to say we want to group this under this is more of a taxonomy point here, right? So we're going, okay, so we want to, can I zoom in? Sorry. Yep, zoom in. Zoom in. Zoom in. Let's make sure you can actually see what's going on. Zoom in. Okay. So let me close that off for now. Don't need that right this very second. This part. So our tags. This is more about our taxonomy. Let me show my face so you can kind of understand it. I am still a unicorn and I am still drinking my coffee. So what we want to do at this point is say, this is the event. This is the name of the event. It could be test event. It could be something. This is grouping. This is for your information. This is for your information. Tags. Now this is taxonomy. So we've got projects. We've got channels. So we will of course pass through the channel, which will be, some identifier, which is fine. That will go into a specific project, or I could even use a channel name if I really wanted to. That might look nicer. Then the tags are for events that are happening. So we could say it's an auth event, or it is around, beta testers. It could be something to do with I don't know, Laravel SDK. It could be any of these sorts of things. We want to know what's happening in our application from a programmatic perspective. We've got a project. We can group things by project. So we can say, okay, so anything with this project is going to be this, sending events this way. Within that project, we've got our channels. So it could be, different levels of channels. We want to have a channel specifically for back-end events. We want to have a channel for front-end events. We want to have a channel for analytical events. But then within there, we're going to have specific tags. We can say, okay, so beta tester group 1, beta tester group 2, that we can build up from a programmatic perspective so that we can start to track these things that are happening. Are you using following JSON API spec for your API? Eventually, I will do. This is an MVP. This is, let's get a proof of concept. Let's build it. Let's deploy it in a week. Then once it's out there, people are paying if they want to pay. Then I can start to refactor and improve. And it goes like that. So the purpose for this is to show that actually you can do it a lot. You can do a lot in a week. You can do a lot more than what a lot of people think. So then from a meta perspective, what we're going to say that the SDK, actually, we're using the PHP SDK. The version that we might be using is 0.0.1. Realistically, we should probably be an object. Swap it over to an object. There we go. We got that. We got that. We got that. And that's going to have to be in strings. So there we go. We passed that across. 500 internal server. Perfect. Something happened. Invoke return value must be responsible. So what we want to do, we want to take a payload like this and we want to dispatch it to a background job and say, handle it. Just handle it. Is it a good idea for us to use it in a new project, or is it overkill? Oh, God, that really depends. So this specific example, I want to get something done in a week. I've challenged myself to build this out in a week. So that's what I'm going to do. And I may have to compromise on my code quality, my test coverage, the standards that I would typically follow, my architecture. I'm not following how I would typically build things because I'm trying to get it done. And that's the important thing to remember is sometimes you just need to get stuff done. They call it the fuck it, ship it method. It's not going to be perfect. And if you spend forever trying to make it perfect, you're never going to launch it. So instead, we're going to do it this way. Okay, the final thing I want to do is add the channel into here so that this is indeed required. Let me match the quote. Sorry, I was writing JSON, so I started double quoting everything. So this is required. We want to say rule exists. The table it exists on is channels, and the column we want to check is name. So let's go to channel quickly. Damn it. Channel. The name on the project, that's fine. That's all good. Some roll-up stuff that I wasn't meaning to press. No problems. I'm here to help, basically. Meta required. We'll look at this later. We'll make this nullable, actually. That's the only thing we're going to do on it. So rule exists, table column. And what we want to do, we want to be able to create a payload, right? So let's say icon. We want to be able to do stuff like this. IR. Aha, the selected channel is invalid. So I need to go make sure I've got a channel available. Channels. Let's go make sure we've got a channel name. Beta test. Like that. Come over to here. Channel. Beta test. Bang. We are now working again. We are playing with fire, as they say. Playing with fire. So, close that down. Don't need that. Here's a request. Public function. This is how I like to do things. Might not be your way, but it is my way. And this is how it's going to help me build this better. So, I can come here. I can create payloads. Create ingress payloads. And we're going to have an event payload come through. Now this event payload is going to basically be built up from our request handler here. Just over here, we are going to have not that part. I wanted this. So we're going to have a private read-only string name. I have private read-only string for the icon. However, that is nullable. I'm going to make that required. I want that icon to be passed through. Private read-only string for that description that's going to come through. Private read-only private read-only array for the tags. And we're going to have a read-only object for the meta, nullable object. And now we're going to look at meta later, I think. Then private read-only string channel. That is our payload. That is kind of like what comes in. We do some tidy up quickly. I hate this sort of formatting. It just drives me crazy. And if it's there, it's going to bug me. So we want a way to be able to save this to the database. So public function to array. This is going to return an array. Return an array where we have a name for this name. We have the icon for this icon, the description, we're going to notify the tags that come through, meta information that might be passed, and the channel ID. So we're going to take the name in, the payload will convert it to the ID, and then we're going to bring it back. So public static function from array. So we're going to receive an array of data, and we want to return the event payload in return. So return new event payload. I have an event request. We don't need that. Name, data, name, icon, data, icon, description, we're going to notify tags, 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 meta, data, meta, and the channel is data channel. That will create it, that will do all of that. This can now return event payload, return new, event payload from array. The data is going to be built here. So the request coming through, we know we have a name. So we can say this string name icon. We can pretty much do the same thing. Yeah. What am I doing today? I think I need some time off work. So here's the icon. Next, description. Thing. We're not doing any parsing right now. That is a future goal. Yeah. Okay. Notify. Again, and this time we're going to do a Boolean. And we don't need a toString because it's going to give us a Boolean. Next, we're going to have tags. So for this, we're just going to say this get tags. Meta. That's in this an array as well. This get matter channel query where name is this string channel string first key. That's it. There you go. I saw part one yesterday. Glad to catch part two today. A bit late. Yeah, it's okay. We're getting there. It's fine. It's just a lot. It's a bit of fun. So start a channel query. We want to get where the name is passed in as a channel, and we want to get the first one. If it might fail, but we want to get the key, basically. So our controller here, what we want to do is kind of just dispatch a job, right? How long have we got? An hour and 20 minutes. Not too bad. I'm not going to go for too much longer because I do have other things I need to get done today, unfortunately. The constructor. We do that. So we're going to have a private read-only dispatchable bus, dispatchable command bus as a bus. And once this is validated, we're just going to say this bus dispatch and do something, return the response. You know, we're marshalling stuff at this point. We're going, okay, cool, request in, validate, convert, send, done. So we need a job. We want to make a job. This is a web project, create new project. Now we're going API v1. Let me zoom out so you can see, it's all in one line. API v1, ingress, capture event. That's what we're going to do. Okay, we do that as well. Okay, we got it. So now we can come back here and we can say new capture event. And what we're going to pass through to this is a payload we're building from the request. So we can say public read-only event payload as nice and clean, nice and simple. Interact with the queue. It should be queuable. We don't really need serialized models because we're not actually passing through a model. Get properties, get class. I'm going to leave it off. I don't think we need it. It might die. We'll find out. Event store, capture event. So the payload we are sending is a request payload. Then we just need to create a response. So at this point, we just need to return a message to say, yep, we've accepted your request. So message response. This one, because I know that one works. I can't remember what I did on the treble one. So simplify that one. The message I'm going to send is, right, we're passing through data. Data as an array, status accepted. Data we're going to pass through is message, and the message is going to be, we have accepted your request and are processing. That's it. Bish bash bosh, away we go. Now we're getting an error somewhere else. So argument meta must be of type nullable object array given. Okay, so now we can work back through that. Capture event payload, that's coming through as an array. Nullable object, we are going to just say an array. Simple. We're going to turn it into an array now and say, there we go. Unexpected variable, event payload, line 15. We have accepted your request and are processing it. So this capture event job going on here, let's just do a quick dime dump on this payload. So we've got our payload coming through, tags, meta, all of that has come through nicely. So what we want to do is grab the portal for the database, and we want to try and save it. So we want a transaction. The callback is event query. Okay. This payload array. And that is all we need to do at this point. We're just saying, cool, pop it in there. Just keep passing this information. We're going to dispatch it. We're going to save it. We're going to dispatch it. We're going to save it. And eventually we can look at priority queues based on subscription levels. But right now, there's no point for that. That's just extra stuff for no real advantage. So we can do come here and we can say send. Come over to this and say a Tinker app models event count. App models event not found. That's because I did that. 273. 274. Fantastic. We are catching that data. We're working with that data. That is great. That's all I wanted to achieve. I wanted a way to be able to say, cool, let's marshal these events. So we can now start thinking about, okay, now we're capturing these events. We want to be able to display them. You know, we're not just here to catch stuff and you don't want to see it. We need to think about how can we display these events. You know, we've got a name, it's part of the channel. We've got tags and meta information around it. We've got an icon. We need to look at, okay, so how can we take that icon and turn it into a component of some kind? How can we work with this? So I'm going to call it a day there. Again, about an hour and a half. So we're on like 3 hours in, and we've got a very, very basic proof of concept that allows people to create an API key, create a project, and we haven't got channels yet. We're going to look at making channels next, you know, allowing people to register channels. However, it might be nice to have channels more dynamic. I'm going to have a think about that tonight. Let me know what you think on Twitter or in the comments. Do you think these channels should be dynamic? So we don't manually create them. They're created part of the event. So you can say, okay, I want to create a new channel for this. I want to have to go to the UI to do this. I've got a project. I'm in my project. Here's a name for the channel. Go create it. You know, first or new. Just go create. Let's go. Let me know what you think in the comments after this. Like, subscribe, share, you know, the YouTube stuff. You know, bell button, tick, ring. Thank you for joining me on my unicorn startup journey. Yeah, Let me know what you think. Are you enjoying it? Aren't you enjoying it? We've now got an API. We can start tracking that API, working with that API to improve upon it. We've got a few little bits of the UI left to do. After that, we can look at releasing a Laravel package to go along with this, so I can put it into a test app and start, proof of concept. Does this work the way I want it to? Is this as easy as am I achieving what I wanted? Yes or no? No? Okay, let's take it back and let's see what went wrong. So thank you. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good day, good morning, good evening, good night, whatever time it is. Stay awesome, and thanks for joining me. Good late. What? See you later.